This is J. Krishnamurti's second public discussion in Saanen, 1965.
I think we shall continue, if we may, where we left off yesterday. We were saying yesterday that doing is learning. Not that you learn first and then do afterwards. If there is the idea first and then action, in that there is contradiction and therefore conflict. But while acting is learning, then there is constant process of understanding in which there is no conflict and contradiction whatsoever. Then we also said that to learn is to have a silent mind. A silence, a stillness, which is not induced, which is not put together by thought in order to acquire silence, but in almost everything that we do, if there is an intensity and an attention, invariably, I think, there comes that quality of silence from which learning and acting take place. And we said also that it is very essential, to understand contradiction. And contradiction within our souls will always exist as long as there is a center, the sensor, the observer, who is judging, evaluating, creating images, and so on. And we were inquiring into what is that center, the whole structure of so-called positive directive activity of a center that's always guiding, shaping, controlling, changing. And from there, we'll proceed this morning. I think that's where we left off, if I remember rightly. we would not find.
Try to find absence.
Ah, yes.
Are you going to answer that question? Or
No, sir. He just was reminding me where we were yesterday.
that's not a question? All
It
right.
was not a question, no.
Then this state of silence that seems to be a precondition to everything, could you please describe that in terms of what you do not mean by the word? What kind of activity you do not mean? What is not meant by silence?
By?
What you do not mean by silence? See if
Uh-huh,
you can approach it that way.
He wants to, the questioner wants to know what we mean by silence and could we describe it by saying what is not silence? I wonder if we can't approach the whole issue differently. I think most of us are aware that we are in a state of contradiction. And one hasn't got to go into the details of that contradiction. And because that contradiction causes pain, various forms of destructive activities, one says to oneself, is it possible to be free of all contradiction? Not only conscious, but also unconscious contradictions. Now, that is the question, principal question. Now, I want to learn about it. Not for you to tell me what silence is or what it's not, but I want to understand, I want to learn in the very process of observation. I observe that I am in a state of contradiction. And I know very well that as long as there is a center, any form, whether it's an image, whether it's whatever it is, that will always breed contradiction. I think that's clear. Then what is the mind to do? How is it to learn about contradiction without creating another center which will also become a source of contradiction? And I see, to learn, I must have a certain passive, quiet, still awareness. And that passive awareness is not a thing which I can cultivate. Because in understanding contradiction, the mind has come to the point when it says to understand anything, the mind must be passive, right? To understand this vast stream of life which is myself, with my various centers, business, spiritual, family, and other forms of centers, it says that to learn about it is the act of silence itself. Right? That's what we were talking yesterday. And then we said, what is this silence? Please, we are not going to cultivate it by listening to me, getting a pattern of silence or what is not silence, and then working up in it and capturing the silence. You will never do it, obviously. So, what is this silence? Can it be described? And if it is described, please listen carefully. If it is described, either positively or negatively, there is still an observer. There is still a center which looks at it as silence. And therefore, that center creates contradiction and says, how am I to cultivate that silence? Right? First of all, are we clear that the mind must be somewhat quiet? If it would listen to that stream, if it would look at a tree, if it would look at another's face, to look, to listen, to learn, there must be a certain quiet, negative state of mind, not a blankness, not a determined quietness, nor a cultivated quietness, but one sees that to listen, to look, to learn, there must be a certain passive attention. If that is clear, not what that silence is, not what that quietness is, then that becomes too infantile. Then we'll invent images, symbols, words, which become the center then. Right? Is that clear? So we said to ourselves, what is this quietness? What is its nature and its structure? Not the structure of words which describe the silence, but the silence itself. What is its nature and what is its structure? Right? Now, we are going into that this morning. Please, again, let's be very clear that you are not listening to me, trying to understand me, the speaker. He is not at all important. What is important is to understand the nature and the structure of the mind which is quiet, and out of that quietness learns, acts. The learning is the acting. Right? So, we are going to go into that. So we've used two words or three words: silence, stillness, silence; passive, attention; and negation. Right? Now, what do we mean by a passive mind? And to understand what is the nature of that passive mind, we must understand, mustn't we, what we consider to be positive. Right? Not as a contrast or a contradiction to the passive. Right? Is the negative, passive state an opposite to the positive? If it is the opposite to the positive, then it is a contradiction. And therefore it is not passive nor negative. This is clear? Is this too highbrow? Huh? We are following each other? So I must be very clear what we mean by positive, and also I must be very attentive. The passive or the negative is not a contradiction, not the opposite. So I must find out what is positive first, right? What constitutes, or what is the structure, what is the nature of a mind that is always functioning in the positive? Right? We mean by the positive, don't we? Now, wait a minute. All right. Shall we describe all the things that constitute the positive, or shall we come to the essence of it? You're following? Huh? Beg your pardon?
I do not know what the positive is, but perhaps we find it so difficult and so rare to be in that state of a still mind because of a deep down fear.
No, madam. No, madam. No, we are trying to find out, aren't we? Not what the silent awareness, I hate to use these words, they become pattern. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, wait a minute. I ask a second question. We can, in detail, describe the positive. The positive mind that follows, that accepts, that obeys, that creates authority and therefore fear, that's always looking for somebody to tell what it should do, that lives and has its being in experience as knowledge. Right? And we can go on adding more to that. Shall we go through all that? Wait, please don't. You know, you're so impatient, which means you haven't really understood the thing. Shall we go through all the detailed description of what is a positive mind? And it may be necessary because we haven't really understood what positive mind is. Or shall we come to the essence of what a positive mind is? Don't say yes, get to that as quickly as possible. If you would say that, let's consider the essence, you will not have understood the nature and the structure of a positive mind. You're following on? But if you understood, examined, approached, learned about the positive mind, then you would put to yourself the question, what is the essence of it, right? The essence of it, not all the peripheral descriptions. So, I am afraid one must go through all the peripheral description before you come to the essence. You know, our minds, our brain, our whole organism is the result of time. And during that course of time, it has established certain patterns of behavior, conduct, thought, activity. And the pattern, the formula is the positive. Right? This is so, isn't it? Are we all going, are you finding it out, or am I finding it out, and then you afterwards accept it? We are working together, aren't we? Or I am working and you are listening, and then accepting. So we are working together. And therefore, it is a learning together about what we call a positive mind, a mind which is aggressive, which is assertive, which is dominating, which, because it dominates, it accepts to be dominated. It functions within the pattern of knowledge because it wants to be sure. Right? Listen carefully what is coming out of this. So the essence of a positive mind is a mind that demands security at any price, not only outwardly, but very deeply inwardly, to be completely secure, to be completely find something which will give it a permanency. If there was no permanency, inwardly no security, then there is no positive pursuit, right? I wonder if you're getting all this. You understand? I've just learnt about it. I've just learned, the mind has just learned that as long as the mind is seeking a permanency, seeking and therefore finding, permanency, security, certainty in relationship, in activity, in anything, a permanency, which means a security, which means certainty, then the search is to find. And the finding and the seeking is the essence of positive mind, right? Golly, I got something, haven't you? Je n'entends pas, madame. Is there a way to suppress? Is there a way to suppress contradiction in the positive mind? My God. Sir, you are not even listening. Sir, look, please, I understand what you're saying, sir. I'm not trying to deviate from it. We are trying to find out and learn. In the very finding is the learning. Not that I find and then act. We are trying to learn about the nature and the structure of a positive mind. And after examining the details, I see, I may be wrong. You follow? Don't accept what we are talking about as the final oracle that speaks, or the authority. This mind finds that as long as there is a seeking, which means finding, that state of seeking and finding is the positive mind. Which does not mean the opposite. Which does not mean that a negative mind does not seek, does not find, does not do. You are getting this? Yes, madam, we're coming. You see, please, you're not answering me. We are trying to think it out together. Don't make any positive statement. Is it not thinking? That is a positive statement. Look, sir, this is...
Excuse me, sir. While we are in the present state, at a present level of consciousness, can we ask any question other than positive?
That's what we are coming to that. The gentleman asked, the questioner asked, given our present state of consciousness, any question that we ask is positive question. You see, now what is wrong, or why shouldn't we think function positive? Right? If we find it is not worthwhile, if we find that does not clear up our confusion, we'll then look for something else. But if we accept this positive way of life, which is I will not, I will according to my pleasure, the image which has been created through pleasure, which means the avoidance of pain, though the cultivation of pleasure breeds pain. From that I determine to be or not to be, to do or not to do. And this positive, assertive, directive, determined pursuit of seeking and finding in itself creates contradiction. In itself. As long as I don't learn about it, I will not find the other. I won't come upon the other. You see how one has to be so awfully careful of words. Have we gone thus far? Is it fairly clear? Come on, madam. You see, it's most extraordinary. The questioner says, when we look at the positive, with positive outlook, with a positive mind at life, we divide life as the me and the not me. Now, the positive approach to life breeds competition, right? Because the positive approach inherently is to seek and to find. And therefore, there must be competition, aggressiveness. And a positive mind, can it know what affection is, love is? Or am I jumping too much, too quickly? Look, sir, a positive mind demands experience. Because it's tired of all the experiences it has had, it wants more experience, right? So it seeks out experiences. When they are not sufficiently acute, strong, then it, through imagination, creates experiences, visions. And if that too does not satisfy it, then it takes to drugs. Not only marijuana, but stronger forms of drugs, opium and the derivatives of opium, LSD. So it is always positive, though it reduces through these drugs a negative state of mind which has certain experiences through stimulation. Such a mind is still a positive mind, seeking experience. Oh Lord, all right. You might say, what is wrong with having wider and deeper and stronger experiences? What's wrong with it? Either self-created experiences, projections from one's own conditioned mind, longing, seeking, searching, wanting. What's wrong with that? That's where we live. When we live that way, there is not only a dependence on drugs. You're following all this? Whether the drug be a drink, sex, amusement, going to the church, attending the mass, all the rituals and all that. But also a mind that is seeking must invariably be in a conflict with the past which has been cultivated through experience, and wanting to escape from the past into the future as a new experience. And therefore, a mind that is seeking, experiencing, wanting experience is always in a state of contradiction. That's fairly clear. Need we go? Huh? So, we see the nature and the structure of a positive mind. Being dissatisfied with what it has found and wanting more, and seeking and therefore finding. Seeking from the principle of image and expanding in its discovery is pleasure. So we know that. If you don't actually know that, I'm sorry, I can't go on and on and on infinitely. So I see a positive mind which is not only aggressive, competitive, jealous, vain, superstitious, ambitious, in despair, and all the rest of it, but behind all that, the positive mind is always seeking more, comparing, because it wants to reach a certain point of eminence or excellence where it shall be undisturbed and certain. Right? Bene? And our concern is it not, to find out if the mind can be, not temporarily, not for a certain period, but completely free from contradiction. It is only then there can be clarity. And clarity is not something to be found. I don't know if, therefore I am discovering it, that a mind that is seeking may find a clarity which is merely self-created and therefore within itself inherently contradictory. Such an activity is only produce more contradiction, and therefore it sees only a mind that is completely negative, that can be in a state of non-contradiction. I've learned this. Nobody has told me. I haven't read a book. I haven't been to a philosopher. I am no guru's teacher and all that silly nonsense. In doing, I have learned. The mind has learned. So, negative mind, that negative state is not a contradiction of the other. This is very important to understand that. Is not the opposite of the positive. Look, I can deny, reject, and if I may use the word self-sacrifice, reject property, money. Listen to this. I may reject that. Property, money, fame. I reject it because I want to find God. I want to find truth. I want to find a bliss in whatever that is. So it is not really a rejection. But I reject this because I want something more. Therefore it is not a rejection. It is part of the same movement. Right? So, when the mind rejects the positive, it rejects not because it wants to find the negative, but in rejecting, the other thing is being learned. You're following? In rejecting, the other thing is learned and therefore doing. I wonder if you're coming on, right? You get?
An experience from observing that's it.
Yes, sir.
It's that experience still. And I don't want that experience. I leave that experience.
Huh?
Is that still mind that is...
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Surely. The question is, I look at something. A face, the movement of a river, the mountain, the tree. I look at something. And through that very observation, there is an experiencing. Is that still a positive mind? I say it is. So you're going to discover something if you pursue it. That is, as long as there is an experiencing for whatever cause, it is still within the field of the positive. No. This is the most... What, sir?
How will we get
I don't. I have very carefully explained that you can't get it.
but how to create it?
You can't create it. Sir, look, when you understand that snake is a poisonous snake, you have understood the whole thing, haven't you? You move away from it. Right? Don't you? Or are you, is this too complicated? When you see poison, you don't drink it, do you? Because you see it is destructive. So, in understanding the positive, which is very complex, it isn't just saying, well, I've got it. It is a tremendous understanding. Which means a mind that has no authority. You are following? And therefore no experiencing as recognition. Right? Are you coming? Stay, look, I see that. I see a beautiful face. And I experience a pleasure. That pleasure has arisen through recognition of what I consider to be beautiful. That is, the experience is through stimulation of a pleasure which I have established as beauty. I don't know if you're following all this. So, by understanding the whole nature and the structure of the positive mind, as I understand poison, the mind has totally moved away from it. The mind hasn't got to do anything about it. If you do, you are in a contradiction, therefore effort. By understanding the poisonous nature of the positive, the mind has moved away into the so-called negative. Right?
Therefore, it is an experience.
And never, it has no experience of the negative. It has the experience only within the field of the positive. So this requires tremendous understanding. Don't agree or disagree, There's a whole school I've been told, in Buddhism, which is based on negation. And there have been people who have worked it for all their lives to find out what this negation is. And you, for giving half a day or an hour, and you're trying to say, well, I agree or disagree. So you have to understand a most profound thing, which is it possible for a mind to be in a state where it is so clear, and it can only be clear in negation, so that it has no experience at all? No, sir.
Can I ask a signification of experience? For instance, I do an asking and there is an answer. In this process is experience. But there is an energy in my asking, and is it possible to stay all the time in an asking position without an answer?
I'm coming. You are quite right, sir. The question is, we ask questions because there is a challenge and response. And the response is always according to the background, according to our experience, according to our knowledge. Therefore, the answer is always within the question, right? And the questioner says, is it possible to remain only with the question, not seek an answer? Why do you ask a question? Because
I am in conflict because I have to remove and renovare my storage of answering.
yes, that is, he says, he asks questions to renew, renovate, add to the storage as experience, as knowledge which he has. And from that storage, from that knowledge, from that past, you experience, you act. And that action, that experiencing is creates contradiction. Right?
Contradiction also because when we ask a question, we ask a question only about a part of something. We only divide the thing.
That's right. Obviously, we only ask questions in we ask questions fragmentarily. Now, wait, she has suggested something. Please listen to this. Please listen. Because you're all somebody's talking. I'm going to ask you. Only when the mind is functioning in fragments, it asks questions. Right? Now, when it is functioning as a whole, is there any need to ask questions? And the whole is not the positive, but the negative. The positive question is a fragmentary question within the field of the positive, because it's functioning fragmentarily, right? And therefore contradictorily. When we understand the nature of that positive structure, and the understanding is the learning and the doing, you are moved away. The mind has moved away as it moves away from poison. And when that movement, which is negation, is there in a question? Oh no, this requires tremendous. Beg pardon? A self-assertion, of course. The desire for fame, wanting to self-express, be somebody, great writer, painter, all that silly stuff is still within there. And don't waste.
The question was, the minute say, does that assertion come with questioning?
Does self-assertion come with questioning? I can question without self-assertion, surely. I can ask you, what is love? What is death? What is life? Not because I'm self-assertive. I live a miserable, sordid life within the field of fame and success and all the rest of it. And I say, by Jove, there must be something else. That is not self-assertive. But it becomes self-assertive if the positive tries to find, seeks, and finding. I don't know. You understand what we are saying? That all religions have said, seek and you shall find. You understand? And we are cutting at the root of all that. How can you accept it? I don't know.
We cannot be conscious of the negative state of mind. Can't we?
Beg pardon?
We cannot be conscious of the negative state of mind.
The gentleman, the questioner asked, can we be conscious of the negative state of mind? Obviously not. So look, so you have to find out what we mean by that word consciousness. You following? What do we mean by? When are we conscious? There is that airplane making noise, and I want to listen to you, and I feel disturbed. Then I become conscious. I suffer. Then I become conscious. I'm frustrated. I want to be famous and become a great big man, and I'm frustrated. In that frustration, there is pain, and I become conscious. I become conscious either through the demand and the continuity of pleasure, or the avoidance and the pushing away of pain. So look, when I do something as a function, as a journalist, as an engineer, as a function, as an artist, which are all functions. Is there consciousness as being a functionary? You become conscious as being a functionary only when you are seeking out of that function a status, right? So, through function, you may be a good writer or something else, and through that function, you are seeking fame. Then begins all the mischief.
What you say is that when there is experience, there is consciousness. And this consciousness is similar to say conflict.
All right. I've said it, you have said it. Then where are we?
But consciousness seems to be synonymous with awareness, or the opposite of being a sound asleep.
Yes, sir. Consciousness is synonymous with words, with symbols, with experience, with deriving status from function, ambition, greed, struggle, effort, all that. This is clear. And what we are talking about is understanding the whole positive, learning about it. There comes the very learning is the new movement. Not how am I to live without experience? Won't I die? I say, of course you'll die. Anyhow, we are already dead, so it doesn't very much matter. So such questions have no meaning. But if we see what the nature and the structure of consciousness, understand, learn, and the very learning is the doing, and the doing is the movement that comes, which is not related to that.
You say that in seeking there is no understanding. How about without seeking? Is there understanding?
Questioner says, you are saying, are you not? He asks, in seeking there is no understanding. But if you do not seek, is there understanding? We are saying, why do you seek? Not that you mustn't or must. Why do we seek?
Is there a difference between seeking and inquiring? What is it?
Oh yes, surely. It all depends what you inquire, so don't complicate it. Take one thing after another. Seeking. Why do I seek? I'm unhappy. I'm miserable. My life is shoddy, petty, small, though I have a big name and a lot of words. My life is ugly. And I say, I'm struggling. I want to get away from it, find something more. And also, I'm so dissatisfied with everything I have touched. Satisfied with my family, with my wife, with myself, with the world, with everything I'm dissatisfied with. And out of that flame of dissatisfaction, I want to find something. And I generally do. I either become a communist, a socialist, a Roman Catholic, or become a Zen, or whatever it is. So can the mind, please listen, can the mind which has lived on experience and adding more and more to itself, expanding itself through knowledge, through fame, through aggression, and finding all that empty, giving significance to life. That's what it does. So can that mind which is the outcome of time, and therefore a tremendous positive process, you understand? I will, I must, this isn't right, this is wrong, this is the line across which nobody is going to cross. Can such a mind which has been brought up for centuries upon centuries on positive, competitive, aggressive, seeking and finding mind, can that mind understand this whole thing and move away by learning about the positive? You understand? If the mind doesn't move away from the positive, it will always remain in conflict. And if you derive pleasure in conflict, go on. Don't say, I want the other, and yet swallowing this poison.
But sir, isn't that dissatisfaction with what we call contradictions also the motive power which leads people to seek for what you call the negative state?
Yes, sir. You see, I don't Dissatisfaction, I was trying to explain, is so easily satisfied. And being easily satisfied is to find the negative state. So, before I found pleasure in the positive, now I'm going to find pleasure in the negative. But the mind is still the rotten little stupid mind which has functioned within the positive and now going to function with the negative. It's the same mind. Wanting fame, wanting success, wanting to find, wanting to experience, only it says I'm negative. But this is...
Condition, and that is why we are attracted by one purpose and another. Of course.
So we have to live in this world. We have to live in this world.
Yes,
We have...
we are attracted by pleasures, by desires, by thoughts, and so on and so on.
We are saying exactly the same thing as you are saying. We have to live in this world. We are influenced. We have our jobs. We have our families. We have our beliefs, dogmas, fears, anxieties, quarrels, jealousies, ambitions. That's our world. And that is the world of a positive state in which we live. Kicking each other, killing each other, doing everything in that state. That's what we call life. Please listen to the end of it. If you say, that's good enough for me, carry on. With your gods, with your superstitions, with your leaders, with your gurus, with your saviors, priests, or whatever it is, carry on. But if you say, look, is there a way of ending contradiction and living totally differently? Not at the opposite of this, then you must understand this whole business, living in this world.
Do we have time to do this? We are so occupied in this world with our profession and family life and so on. We're so busy.
Gentlemen, the questioner says we are so busy with the family life, job, children and all the rest of it. Can we do this actually, really, not some vague, idealistically utopian way? Can we actually do this in life? Right? You've asked the question. Are you waiting for me to answer it? I say if you wait for an answer, I say yes, you can live. Then what? Where are you? But if you say, look, let me understand this whole structure. Let me look at it. Let me understand this, the mind that is this way, that way. Give 10 minutes. Then you will see that you can live in this world totally different. If you cannot live totally differently in this world, then it's not worth it. Throw it in the garbage. Therefore, one must be clear, ruthless, with the understanding of this structure. You see, then we can go into what is this state of mind that lives and has its being in negation. You understand? But if you have not understood the positive, you can never go into the other. You can never flow into the other. Take the question of beauty. What is beauty? Look, we're going to, it's time to stop. I'll stop now. We'll pick it up tomorrow. It is tomorrow, isn't it? Yes, tomorrow. You ask that question. Or I ask you that question. How do you answer it? Volumes have been written about it by professional artists, professional theoreticians, what beauty is. The beauty according to the East and the beauty according to the West. The Greek idea, the Egyptian idea, and so on and on. How do you find out? If you answer it from knowledge, then it is the answer of a petty mind. For all knowledge is within the petty mind. Right? Does that mean, you'll ask, not to have any knowledge? So when we are asked that question, now wait a minute. I'm asking you, are you going to seek an answer? And if you seek an answer and find an answer, it will be on terms of what you already know. As the objective painters, as the new type of poetry, and this, that, and all the rest of it. But if you listen to that question, and had no answer, then what is your response? Not, I don't know, but what is your response to that question which is to find out what beauty is? I think we better stop, don't you? Yes, sir? We've just answered that question, sir. I can go into the mountains this afternoon, come back home and pick up the telephone. Either I have understood and therefore learnt and act, and therefore there is a movement which is not of the positive, I can pick up the telephone and answer and say, will you come to dinner tonight? Huh? I'll answer what is suitable at that moment. I don't want to or I want to. That is the end of it. You see, so that demands something else. One has to understand what it is to be alone. Because beauty is aloneness. We'll go into it tomorrow, sorry.